Hi, it's Kevin May, Editor-in-Chief of PhocusWire, joined here with Ian Sloan. Hi, Ian Sloan, you're
Hello.
the VP of Client Strategy
Yeah.
at Avvio. Everyone, the last week or so, has got themselves in a right pickle about the Esther report that came out. We ran a story on it.
Yeah.
Very, very popular in terms of readers. I've added some fewer eyeballs, and then we ran a rebuttal by Max Starkov yesterday, where he's called it voodoo science. Frank wrote a piece, your boss, the CEO.
Yep.
What's going on? What's going on? I mean, Esther is an interesting organisation. It's backed by the OTAs. It must have known, I think, that they would be creating a bit of a maelstrom of stuff by releasing.
Of course they do, and
something
that's
like
why they did it, right? They're throwing something. It's like a grenade launched into the middle just to try and make some noise.
Yeah.
But I suppose they also realise that due to the very fact that it's backed by the OTA lobby, some people will go, okay, you know, I know why you're doing that. I know what you're trying to do. This battle's been there for years now. You know, I've been in the hotel industry for 15 years, and maybe a little bit more. And I think in all my time in the industry, it's already been there, always been there. Still confusing. Like when you talk about just the whole book direct message as a whole, I find it fascinating. If you go into a room of people and say to people who are not travel industry people like us, what does book direct mean? Just no idea. So we talk about it like it's common and common knowledge, but to people outside of this room and this kind of industry, it just isn't.
Why is it in particular such a hot issue at the moment, this last year and a half, 2 years? Or it appears to have got a lot more attention again, the direct versus...
Yeah, I think hoteliers and certainly the big brands have got a lot cleverer around their rate strategies and the actual maximization of profit. So years ago, they knew OTAs probably weren't as good for their business as direct, but they've really, with the advent of data scientists and people coming on board doing a lot more data analysis, they've really got to the point where they can go, okay, the profitability of that rate compared to this one is just a lot less, and we need to really think about what kind of business we're taking and channel shift where we can. Yeah. So I think we've got a lot smarter about how we do it and why.
Okay. The hotels have got more smarter, or there's more companies like you that are around to help them out?
Both. I used to do, for one of the big brands, educational sessions with hotels 7-8 years ago, and at that point they would just say, it's £100, isn't it? Whether I get it from there or there, it's £100, and you would just go, no. What do you keep of that £100? You know, with direct you keep most of it. With an OTA booking or another booking like that on high commissions, you keep £80 of it. You know, what's most profitable for your business? And that was a struggle 7 or 8 years ago. I think that's gradually over the years that education has helped. I think hoteliers are better with that now and really starting to understand it.
So, what I find quite interesting is that it's always seen, maybe you can blame the media for this, but you know, it's often seen through the prism of being very black and very white. It's a battle, all this kind of thing. But I wonder, surely the sensible ones is that it's all about channel mix and all those kind of things, rather than you should encourage as many direct bookings as you can and forget about the OTAs. I mean, what do you advise people about channel management overall?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. I think we often talk about the battle because with all good storytelling, there's a goodie and a baddie. It's Star Wars. It's, you know. Yeah. So there's always got to be that tension in the middle of a good story, which is the OTA versus the hotels versus direct. The reality is they're an important part of many hotels' distribution and mix. I know from past work we've done that a portion of the OTA business that comes into a hotel is truly incremental and would never have found the hotel without the OTA. So they're delivering people into the hotel that would otherwise never have found it.
Right.
So, you know, clever hotels limit that mix and then treat that channel as a customer acquisition channel and then try and convert that person when they get into a hotel. So again, you can often have on arrival in a hotel a guest arrival report which will say, this guest booked via such a channel, try and convert them, try and get them the book direct message, try and sign them up to our loyalty program to try and use it once, but make sure that person doesn't get used to using a channel like that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Given that you said things have moved on a little bit from those years where you said there was educating has happened in the intervening period and hotels kind of get it.
Yep.
But who are you talking to within the hotels now? Is it the marketing team? Is it the revenue managers? How do they figure it out now that they're in the game, as it were? Whose responsibility is it usually within the hotel to figure it out?
I would say that hasn't changed so much actually over the years. I would say in my days working for one of the big chains, it was still 80% revenue management, and pretty much day to day, the people who are when we have a client relationship with the hotel, it's generally a revenue manager or sometimes a sales and marketing director.
Yeah.
I would often talk to the GM or the owners at a higher level to try and figure out where their business is going. But the general people we interact with day to day tend to be revenue manager, sales and marketing director.
Right, okay. And what about for a small hotel that doesn't have a revenue manager? It's just the owner, the GM, is it?
So often, our account management service in that way would often give them advice on their revenue management and their pricing strategy and how they should be thinking about the OTAs, how they should be thinking about digital marketing.
Yeah. But that's going to blow some of their heads off, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Rather than when their rep from booking calls up and says, right, just plug this in.
We'll do it all for you.
Yeah.
And Booking do a very good job, and a lot of the big boys do in keeping on top of hotels every day. Make sure you get your photos right. And one of the things that always disturbs me a little bit is that a lot of the hotels we deal with would spend more time looking at their photos and their content on Booking.com than they would on their own direct website, which drives me crazy. Why? I've never had a good answer why they do it, but they do it.
Right.
So they need to understand that direct is their best channel in terms of profitability rate, acquisition, people coming back, loyalty.
Yep.
It's a place where they can show off. They're not a commoditized, homogenous thing like they are on the shelf. They can really show who they are, get their brand message across, and interact with people in a way they just can't on OTAs.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about the role of meta search then, because that's another thing entirely. So, I mean, what's the kind of general view there for you?
Yeah. So we definitely advise meta search as part of a book direct strategy.
Yeah.
Which
But then often they're up against the OTAs again. I mean.
Exactly. Which is the bigger problem is that often because the OTAs are booking on their brand terms, they're lifting the rates for everyone else, and then the hotels can't buy their own branded terms on some of these things. One of the key things we always try and work with the hotels and our partners on is rate parity, which is still, again, if we go back a few years, still something that hasn't changed a lot. So hotels don't know always what rate parity is, they don't know how to track it, they don't know, sometimes they have access to tools which can track it for them, they don't even know they have access. So really getting control of their rate parity, knowing whether they've got any offline contracts that might have inventory out there that's being passed on to certain people that are undercutting them on price. But we often come up with hotels where when we look on Google HSA or whatever meta it might be, they're being undercut and they either don't know why or they then have to go and stop it somehow.
Okay. What about Google? I mean, they've changed the model slightly, and there was someone we were talking to this morning who was saying, yes, you had hotel ads and stuff like that, etc., but there is so much more potential for them to be further up the funnel again. And then what does that mean for the market generally, do you think?
Yeah, I think if they wanted to, they could probably do a hell of a lot more and cut out a lot of the intermediaries today. They've got the power and the scope by taking over a lot of those bookings directly, I suppose.
Okay.
And step into the spaces that other people are in at the moment.
But then they would be biting the hand that feeds them.
Exactly. So they're in that interesting position where they're kind of a product company that make a lot of money out of the commissions from those services.
Right.
So they could do that, but really, why bother when this is a nice model for them and they're making money?
Yeah. Okay. And how do you think all this shakes out over time? You said it's very cyclical. So now we're having this discussion about direct, etc., etc. Maybe in a year's time it won't be mentioned every other day on PhocusWire or whatever. But the overall debate, where is the next evolution of it, do you think?
I think we're massively focused on the AI side of things and personalization.
Yeah.
So we're big believers that if you can give people a personalized journey and content that's relevant to where they've come from, what stage they are in the journey, and that idea that we can't just give everyone the same website every time they come back.
Right.
So we always go with the old Netflix analogy or Amazon. You know, when I go to Netflix, I don't get showed the same thing every time. It depends. What did I watch last week? It gives me recommendations. It personalizes my what they suggest that I go and watch. Same
Right.
with Amazon. The problem for I think a lot of the websites today that hotels have is that regardless of what you're doing or whether you've even got a booking or not, you go back and they're exactly the same content. Nothing changes. There's no element of personalization. So with the Allura booking engine, we've been trying to figure out how do we learn from every single interaction. So how do we figure out whether you've been here before? If you've been here before and put your dates in, can we then show you something relevant to those dates and maybe a rate that you looked at?
What about if you've been here before but via booking.com?
So we can tell whether you've been here before from different referral places. So we can decide then whether is price the right message for you or is brand and content the right message for you. And I think the best example is always if somebody comes to us direct from a meta search, then we can make some assumptions that they may be price sensitive and that maybe a good price, a closed user group price maybe is good to lead with.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone is coming to us from the first time, maybe an American customer coming to a UK hotel, maybe it's more about the emotive side of things and we're talking about, we'll have a great hot shower waiting for you after a long haul flight and it's not so much putting a price right in front of your face.
Okay. But getting that personalized, so if you've got lots of hotels with different websites and they all do personalization, where's the differentiation always comes back to the products, right?
And
the point I'm trying to make is how do you then demonstrate that it's about the products again, even though you're trying to do all the personalization stuff?
It's all ultimately customer experience, isn't it?
Right.
And joining up those dots, I think that the guy from Facebook was just saying, how do you join up those dots, not only from the point of booking, but all the way through into the stay and all those touch points. And the reality is to what you just said, things in 2 years' time will have moved on again. So the fact, no one's doing personalization well at the moment. So you'll find that, a group of fast leaders, the start of that change curve, will do it well. And then by the time it's 2 years, they'll start doing other things well that the other fast followers aren't doing. So it's always going to be moving.
Yeah, why isn't anybody doing personalization well at the moment then?
It's difficult.
Right. So because of access to data, just because of the techniques and the AI hasn't learned enough that it
AI
needs to
and
learn?
machine learning is just becoming, understood and usable in travel and particularly for small hotels. Even for the big chains, they're still playing with it. I know the OTAs have been buying up small AI companies and figuring out what does it mean. There are natural language search tests going on different sites to try and figure out, of all those things that you can do with AI, what is the most important thing. And for me at the moment, and for Avvio, it's how do you get the right message in front of the right people at the right time and personalize that experience so they feel like you're talking to them and not just some homogenous guest out there,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Okay, Ian, Sloan, Avvio, thank you very much for talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you.